Hello everyone! Today we're going to be jumping back into Standard with an almost mono red deck. So I say almost mono red just because of our inclusion of Scalding Viper here. This does in fact have that blue sorcery adventure, but the rest of our deck is mono red. To accommodate for giving ourselves the ability to return a non-land permanent to our opponent's hand, we are running 4 copies of Shivan Reef in the mana base. We also have Mishra's Foundry, Sokazan, and a bunch of mountains like any other mono-red deck would. The rest is fairly straightforward. We have Kumano here, which is just a high-value turn 1 enchantment play. Monastery Swiftspear as well, having that hasty prowess creature. Monstrous Rage is one of the best new cards that mono-red has got from Wilds of Eldraine here. +2/+0 with a Monstrous Roll token, so that's an additional +1/+1 and trample. Very powerful and a very red card indeed. We also have our Phoenix Chicks for a flying, so that's evasive and hasty creature and additional value there. We are also running Play with Fire. Play with Fire is a great face burn spell. It gives us the ability to scry pretty good and can help us close out the game. We have our Bloodthirsty Adversaries to bring back one of our spells from the graveyard. It's actually a pretty cool combo if we have 5 mana to play Bloodthirsty Adversary and then bring back Monstrous Rage, because that's going to go ahead and let us deal 5 damage for 5 mana with haste on that creature if our opponent has an empty board. Now, Charming Scoundrel is also pretty good for us. Most of the time, we are going to be choosing to discard a card, then draw a card. If we do this when our hand is empty, we just draw a card, because again, we discard that card first, and if our hand is empty, we'll have nothing to discard, and then we'll draw a card. So that could be very powerful, but additionally, that Wicked Roll token and that Treasure token can also be great as well. Feldon is a good mono-red threat. Again, hasty creature. You see the theme. We're going to be going face, and we're going to be going face fast. We also have our Lightning Strikes. Great way to deal damage to our opponent's face. And like I'd mentioned before, Scalding Viper. Now, I said we were splashing blue to return that non-land permanent to its owner's hand, but on its own, playing Scalding Viper as a 2/1 with whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value 3 or less, deal 1 damage to them, that's pretty good. It's not quite as good as Eidolon over in Explorer, but for Standard, this is going to be really powerful. And I think we're going to see, even with those, just having those 4 blue sources, being able to go ahead and cast that Sorcery Adventure is going to be impactful for us, since we can make blockers a little bit more in our favor before we swing out. This also is going to trigger Prowess on Swiftspear, so we've got some utility here, and I think this deck is pretty good. Now remember, if you guys have been enjoying my content, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on my latest videos, and if you do enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like. Let's go ahead and see how this deck does. Alright, so opponent's going first, but this honestly looks like a pretty good starting hand. I don't mind keeping this. Like seeing the double Vipers. Triple Vipers, alright. So we are going to go for Feldon first here. Maybe we get counterspelled, maybe we get removal. But having that hasty threat hit the battlefield right now is going to be pretty good for us. Alright, we draw the removal spell, and that's also fine. Next, I think we're going to start stacking our Vipers. Let's get our first one out onto the battlefield. Maybe we draw a counterspell again, maybe we draw removal, but this time, if we draw removal, our opponent's going to start taking damage. Very Mastermind, he'll take some damage for that. It is not free. So we're playing up against a Fairies deck, right? Like, this has to be Dimir Fairies. Alright, looking good. If we draw another land, I think we just play out both of our Scalding Vipers still. Okay. +1/+1 counter. Alright, that's fine. We do have some options. I think we go Swiftspear. Lightning Strike for Prowess. Get rid of the Messenger. This is going to clear the way. 4 damage through for us. Another damage there. That's still fine. And attack for 2. I think we're in a pretty good spot to still build that tempo advantage. All of our opponent's spells are very cheap. So this Scalding Viper is definitely gonna keep on triggering for us. Find the Foundry. And honestly, I think we're just gonna play out both of these Scalding Vipers. No need to attack here. We can just go ahead and wait. Opponent's gonna be taking 3 damage for almost every spell that they cast, which is gonna be huge for us. Draw a card, sure. Play another land. Looks good. Alright, well, let's start by animating this Foundry. Now we're gonna move to combat, and we're gonna swing out here. We'll choose Monstrous Rage after this has happened. So yep, 3 damage for flashing that out. We'll lose 1 more life. Even game so far. We'll see if they choose to block. Then, depending on how they block, we'll decide what to do here. Interesting, no blocks. So I guess we'll just go ahead and Monstrous Rage. And we've got it, alright. Alright, on the play, and this looks like a fantastic starting hand. Again, we don't really need more than 2 mana here for this hand to function. I'm gonna start with Kamano. Looks like our opponent took a mulligan as well, so that puts us in a pretty decent spot. Next turn we can play out Feldon. Or we could also go for our Phoenix Chick and play out our second Kamano, giving us extra value off of Feldon next turn. I like that. We have Monstrous Rage to get through whatever blocker our opponent puts down. Maybe we see another land. Another land would be good. Thalia. So Thalia is a fun play for our opponent, but it isn't really stopping our incoming damage here. We can kill Thalia with Play with Fire next turn if we need to. Copper Coat. Yep. Exile and return Transform. So now we're gonna swing out. We've got combat tricks with Monstrous Rage, so we can kind of decide what we want to do there. And unfortunately for our opponent, that's about the worst choice they could have made. Let's see, we're gonna grab that Scalding Viper. Valley is gone, and it looks like we've got the win. Alright, on the play first. Double Scalding Viper, Swift Spear with Monstrous Rage, and Play with Fire. This looks really good. So we'll go ahead and keep. So turn 1, it's Swift Spear. We're going to go ahead and hit our opponent for 1. Next turn, we've got Rage and Play with Fire. So we're definitely going to be making contact with our Swift Spear. I honestly think we're going to go Kamano here instead. I'll attack. We'll go Monstrous Rage. Our opponent's not going to be able to kill the Swift Spear, so let's just get that 6 damage in. We're playing much more aggro. If our opponent is playing a mono red deck, Scalding Viper is going to be really strong for us. Yep, Lightning Strike gets rid of that. That's fine. So what do we want to do? Scalding Viper. It's a 3-2. We're going to punish our opponent for all of their cheap spells. Again, right now, in terms of life swing, we are well ahead of our opponent. Play with Fire is also going to be really good as removal for one of their small creatures. We have a Lightning Strike as well. Lots of different things we could do. So next turn, we can swing it for 5. We can deal up to 8. Potentially 10 if we draw a land. Alright. I think it's going to be more efficient to just kill the Furnace Punisher here. Because now we're threatening lethal if they play pretty much any of their spells. We can remove with Play with Fire. If we draw one of our blue sources, we can bounce a blocker. Not that it matters, we can also just play Feldon and go wide. We have lots of different options. Play with Fire is almost always going to be better than Feldon, though, since it's going to be harder to interact with for our opponent. I think worst thing we could see here is probably Thundering Raiju. But aside from that, not really too many threats here. Yeah, okay. Adversary. Take one. Right now we can just play with Fire, ping down the adversary, win the game. Down at 4. Not too bad. It's a 2-2. Sure. We have options. I'm gonna take a moment to think after we draw our card on our turn to see what the best route forward is, but there's almost no way our opponent can catch up to us from this particular position. So we draw a Lightning Strike. Well, what does that tell us to do? Honestly, I think tells us to just pass the turn, right? We could swing out with the Etching. That's gonna go ahead and force something. We'll see. We'll swing with the Etching. This is lethal if they don't block, so they'll have to block, right? There we go. Might as well trade 1 for 1. Right, no issue there. Now we'll just wait. Cough. Okay. We still have lethal in 2 turns. I mean, we Lightning Strike their face and then play with Fire on our upkeep.
Is fighting side by side.
Perfect.
Here comes the avalanche.
Seems good. Play with Fire. And we've got it. Alright, we are going first, and this, while not the best, is a keepable hand. We'll go Shivan Reef into Kamano, pay that 1. I like that we have Shivan Reef setting us up for Scalding Viper. Mishra's Foundry will be good for us eventually, but I want to see another red source. We're going to go with Feldon here, because I want to use my mana efficiently on these early turns. Playing up against a mono green deck. Mono green with Gala Greeters. Alright. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and return Gala Greeters. And I'm going to play out the Swift Spear. Swing out. We've got our opponent down at 10. Next turn we can go Viper Phoenix Chick, which is going to be really strong for us. They just replay the Gala Greeters. Okay. Maybe they put the +1/+1 counter up. Maybe they gain 2. Yep, they go gain 2. So let's go Scalding Viper. Phoenix Chick. Swing out. They just take it all. So we have Adversary Phoenix Chick as well, so we are going to have a really wide board. Yep, ping for 1. Off the Scalding Viper. Gain 2. I don't think they're going to be able to block everything, right? So there's 2 in the sky, we need 4 damage through. They can block 3. It's going to be close. Either way, we should be irreparably causing harm to our opponent's board state when we attack. Tail Swipe, ping for 1, that's fine. Alright, well, let's go Phoenix Chick again. So when we swing out, our opponent is going to block Feldon, Scalding Viper, and we'll get 2, 4... or 2, 3, 5 through, if we do this. Yeah? This should be it. That being said, I think they chump... No? Okay. Good block. Decent block. They have to block one more. They lose their Visionary. Now we have them down at 1. Exile. What do we find? Perfect. We have Kumano for 1 next turn. We'll just go ahead and play that out. And ping. We've got it. Alright, on the play, and a bunch of Scoundrels. We'll take it, you know? It's a new card. It's pretty good. Now, would I recommend any of you keep this hand? Probably not. Am I gonna go ahead and play with this? Definitely. So we're gonna go Foundry, Scoundrel, Wicked Roll token, hit our opponent for 2. Now we'll go Swift Spear. They have a removal spell. So they're trying to decide what they want to use it on. Sure. Scoundrel. Lose 1 life. Replacement Scoundrel. Wicked Roll. They're more likely to want to just kill the Swift Spear separately, so we'll put the token on our Scoundrel. We've got them down at 14. Now next turn we can kind of do a funny thing. We can make a treasure token to enable the Scalding Viper. I think we do this. And we'll just discard the mountain. Prowess trigger is all we'll need. Get our opponent down to 11. That being said, we are afraid of Shieldred this turn. Shieldred will be a problem for us. But that will not be. Just some life gain. Shivan Reef. Go ahead and put you back. Play out the Scalding Viper. Now, when our opponent starts playing those cheap spells, they're gonna start taking damage for it. Again, I'm not thinking there's a Shieldred that we have to worry about. Liliana, sure. That's fine. They might make us sacrifice, they might make us discard. They make us sacrifice, so we'll go ahead and deal 1 more damage to them.
One of your friends has to leave.
Tenacious Underdog, ping them again. They're now down at 8. Let's go Phoenix Chick. Let's go Scoundrel. Discard, then draw. Land. We'll move to combat. Deal 1. Swing like this. Our opponent has choices. My guess is they block the Scalding Viper, but they block the Scoundrel instead. This is honestly the best case scenario for us, because I think our Scalding Viper is going to deal more damage in the long run. Liliana's gone though. We've got our Phoenix Chick in the air, we got the Viper that's going to ping them down as they play their cheap creatures. Interesting. Blossoming Tortoise. Down at 5. We've got a Scalding Viper here, so we'll go ahead and use that, put the turtle back in our opponent's hand. So what if it's another trigger for them? We'll swing out. They block here. And we'll just replace the Viper. They replay the Tortoise. Not too worried about this. I want to see them play 1 cheap spell. Perfect. Couldn't have asked for anything better than that, really. And we have the Scoundrel, so we go Scoundrel. Easy win for us. Wicked Roll token. We'll go ahead and put that up on the Phoenix Chick. We'll go ahead and animate our Foundry and swing out. Looks like we've got it. Alright, on the play, and a pretty good starting hand, if I do say so. We're gonna go Mountain, Swift Spear, and deal that damage. We've got Viper, we can use Shivan Reef to go ahead and remove a blocker, but our opponent starts with a tapped land, so we're gonna go Foundry Feldon. Not gonna cue them in on our little secret just yet. Now, I'm guessing we're going to go see a Blood Tithe Harvester this turn. This is my guess. Purely speculation. Yep, they always have that card. Now what we're going to do is tap correctly here. I don't trust Auto Tapper with this. Return you. Get our Prowess trigger. Get our second Prowess trigger. Swing. And we've got our opponent down at 10 already. Now, of course, they can replay Blood Tithe Harvester, and they'll have that extra blood token, so it'll be better at removing things, but all of our threats are small, and could be removed that way anyway. So next turn, we can either play our Scalding Viper with that +1/+1 counter, or we can go for our Scoundrel. Sure, yeah, that's actually perfectly fine by me. So now, we're gonna go with the Scoundrel here. Additional +1/+1 counter. We'll go Wicked Roll token. We're going to put that on Feldon, who our opponent is more likely to kill than the Scoundrel. Play out the Scalding Viper. And we've got our opponent down at 5. We're going to have Kamano flipping next turn. We have an adversary. We've got the Foundry here. Nothing in our graveyard to bring back, but things are looking pretty good. Ping them for 1 as they play the Epicure. 2 can play at this game. Conscript, sure, ping him for 1 once more. It looks like we've got this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and swing out. Yep, I mean, they do not have the mana necessary for any of this. We'll just go ahead, deal some damage to face, leave a lightning strike on top, and get that super lethal damage. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed, and as a strong takeaway for this deck, I hope you understand that Scalding Viper is a very good card, even in a mono red deck. Now that being said, we did splash blue, and this is a very limited splash. We're talking 4 blue sources. Of course, with Charming Scoundrel, we can get that treasure token, which we can use for blue, so that does give us some additional access, but in none of our games did we actually take that route, so we're getting our blue just off those 4 copies of Shivan Reef, and this is actually very impactful in mono-red decks. Not only are we able to disrupt our opponent's board, right, remove one of those creatures and not have to contend with blockers or trading for a turn, that's always going to be worth that 2 mana for that effect. We have just the 2/1 creature that we can play, which is going to ping our opponent down if they're on an aggro deck, and really lock them out of getting advantage in any sort of mirror-styled matchup. Aside from that, Wild of Eldraine was really good for mono-red. Monstrous Rage is an insane spell here. I mean, this is basically +3/+1, which is really good, and Trample. So very strong, lots of utility there. And Charming Scoundrel is also a really great card in mono red. It has haste. It can be a 2/2 that deals 1 damage when it dies, so that's 3 damage, potentially. We can make that treasure token, and it also can give us card draw if we draw it on an empty hand, so all very powerful options. That being said, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you have any ideas for another deck that you'd like to see me play, why don't you let me know in a comment down below. I'll see you all next time.